Purana Mandir kicked off this sort of huge horror boom in India. We had Ramesh Talwar and Mohan Bhakri and other cheap B-movie, horror movie makers who joined the bandwagon trying to squeeze as much profit out of it as possible. So the Ramsays had their hands full with their competition as well, but they were at the head of the horror boom and the horror cycle. They churned out films similar to Purana Mandir every couple of years. Now, with these films now proliferating, audiences got a little bit familiar with the way things were done. It was more difficult to surprise people. And then towards the 90s, we started winding down with horror films. Too many of them, very similar. The whole thing started getting a little bit too familiar, and audiences were getting bored. Another major impact was the arrival of satellite television. By the 1990s, many homes were being beamed in, popular Western television programs and even horror programs and so on. So they were perhaps not as inclined to watch the kind of old-fashioned horror productions of the Ramsays. Bandh Darwaza comes along in 1990s, released in the summer of 1990, and it follows on rather similar from the storyline that is of Purana Mandir, of this wronged creature who curses a family and therefore takes revenge on them later in times to come. And by this time, each further release is met with diminishing box office returns. Bandh Darwaza, however, again featured the ace in the Ramsays acting pile, which was Ajay Agarwal, who was the main character in this film, which was more on the lines of a sort of pseudo-vampire film with a big dose of, local black magic and that kind of thing. Very entertaining film, hugely enjoyable. The same great sets. Ajay Agarwal is magnificent. Aruna Irani, a veteran character actress, does her thing very, very well in this movie. She's the evil, scheming maid. There is no subplot. There's no comedy subplot. Yes, there are situations that might be amusing, but there's no specific comedy subplot that has to be accommodated and made, you have 15-20 minutes added on to the running time. And there's less song numbers. I think significantly less song and dance numbers than you would find in the usual horror production or regular Bollywood film. I think there, to my memory, there may be 4, which is, that may seem like a lot, but when the normal number is closer to 8, then 4 is the film is a much tighter horror film. It's, for me, one of the stronger Ramsays films, and just, it's unfortunate that it came at a time that audiences had began to suffer from overexposure to horror. And though it stands up as being one of Ramsay's finest, it wasn't long before the horror boom kicked in and production kind of trickled down, and even the Ramsays almost stopped producing horror films, and Indian horror films are mostly represented by really Z-string productions from South India, or then by a couple of Punjabi producers in North India who are, producing, as I say, minuscule budget films that barely make any profit at all. In Bandh Darwaza as well as Purana Mandir, and in fact in most of the films which featured Ajay Agarwal, the Ramsays have managed to create scenes which are genuinely eerie, genuinely scary. Bandh Darwaza for me is, Ajay Agarwal is he transcends the screen always with very, very strong screen presence, and is worthy of his, title of being the first great, monster actor of Indian horror movies.